might pick up a better quality one. This might be like $40 for this respirator right here, or I forgot, maybe 50. And it's superior, but you can see as you use it every day, these straps start to wear out, you know, succumb to the grease on your hands, and they start to lose their elasticity. You can see here I've had to use inner tube, kind of make these Ranger bands instead. And this actually works a little better because I can wash these off. Here, as you can see, it looks like it's starting to break down. You can see the white, the plastic's kind of bending too much. And specifically these straps. Now, it wouldn't be such a big deal except if you look at the way it's constructed. Once this gives out, someone like you or me, we have no way of fixing that. So we'd have to fashion our own strap. Number two is also how I guess you would say soft or flexible this rubber is. When you put this on and it forms over your face, you know, as you lean and as you, maybe if you're looking downward, you turn your left to right, it doesn't, adhere to your face as much. Especially if you realize that you start to sweat, you'll start to create little gaps, and you can smell the fumes. If you're smelling a chemical odor, then it's not airtight, it's not working. Now sometimes I'll slack and I won't put on a mask, or what I've done now is if I don't want to use one of these nice respirators right here, what I'll do is I'll just put on one of these. I have the same one that I'm kind of using. It's just like small tasks, and actually these work pretty decently. I don't smell the odor, so it's obviously preventing any airborne. How precisely, don't quote me on that. I'm not trying to suggest using this. I'm just saying that this will block out the odor. The little metal rim that's flexible and you can bend to form the face, it works. Overall, this is actually quite impressive. There's a metal kind of lining in here that you can actually mold and it'll keep the shape. You can see it stays however you bend it. So these are actually pretty decent for like a temporary quick use. And the reason only why I use those sometimes is because respirators like these you're supposed to wash after using. So for example, here is an upgrade, still by 3M because I'd already owned and bought some extra backup filters, you know, as you swap them out. But there's a lot of things to using a respirator that I think people don't realize, and I want to help as much as I can, okay? Now, the first thing is this model here I recommend. I've been using it and I'm really enjoying it. That's the item number. Comes in a package like this. It says 37082 is a catalog number only. NIOSH, approved as 3M half face piece, silicone, medium 7502. They have different sizes. This one has a lot of, you can see it's not like this one where it's very stiff. Like, I don't know how to convey this, but this one is very stiff. This better quality one is very, flexible. And that really helps it adhere and mold over the face. It also has the way this part is constructed down there, that little sort of cutout actually helps it form even better around the lower bottom part of your chin. The next thing is, you notice, like this was mainly what I was looking for. I really paid attention to just specifically this. The way the strap was connected. You can see the way this one is on the mask. You see it's one single strap and it loops over and it goes and it slides in through this piece. And same thing back here, it slides in through those. Now, I'm not saying this is unbreakable either, but this setup, this method, is far superior than this method, where it's like, we can see, I have two of these, and this one, the mask has, the top part has finally snapped on me. So I think if you're gonna first buy a mask, to save you some grief or some loss of money, get one of these that have notice how it's attached. Like really pay attention to how it attaches to this top part, how it weaves through. So like for example, this one doesn't have no damage. This front piece is very strong compared to this one right here where you see like it's giving and it has kind of some quality issues right there. Okay, there's different kinds. Now you go through different brands, and if you, for example, look at like a catalog such as Ranger's, you're going to see, for example, they list what those acronyms stand for. It's oil-proof, acid gas. I mean, it lists that. And then as you browse the different types of respirators available, You start to get to all the different brands. It lists what these masks can do. For example, the respirator capabilities. For example, here on Scott Safety, you see those acronyms. So it's really important because, for example, this one is not a proper filter. It covers quite a decent number of gases. But you can see here, this one's already beat up, but you can see it covers a lot more. Basically, at least with 3M brand, there is a filter right here that is, you can see if we look for it, olive magenta. You can see here on 3M, combination cartridge, that one right there, the olive magenta. You can see they all have different things. Some things the olive magenta doesn't cover because they have different uses. But at least for 3M, I guess you could say this is the one. I guess they call this olive. Is the color you want, that filter, because it covers more of the I guess the materials you're going to come across. Main thing, I would at least pay attention. Note what you're using, what you're working around. But for me, I just go for the cover as much as I can, get the olive ones. There is a thing that you need is oil proof, because you're working around oils and stuff, and you use environments free of aerosols. So you have to make sure you get an R or a P series. So for example, you see this one here is a P filter, multi-gas vapor, so it has some oil resistance. It even says down here, very important, people, we don't read the instructions, but so you can see if there's oil aerosols in the air, replace the cartridge after 40 hours of use or 30 days, whichever is first. So you have to remember that when you're drilling, you're using cutting oils, that smell that gets in the air. If you're using a portable bandsaw and you're lubricating the saw blades, all that combined, WD-40, that's how long you're going to expect those things to last. 40 hours is 5 days. It's like barely a week if you're working 8 hours a day. So one of the happiest moments for me was once I found a good quality respirator. This one, for example, I know is airtight because at the end of the day my face is dry where the mask is covered. And I even actually have to line the inside of my nose with some lotion and other things like that to keep my nose from drying out. It works that good. That one, that didn't happen, and I could feel it allowing, especially as I sweat, allowing fumes to come through. And when you actually wear the mask, you're supposed to do checks. So first you gotta make sure your face is clean, or try to keep it, not too oily. Put it on. What you're supposed to do is cover the exhaling hole. So in this case, it's down here. I cover it and I blow. Right now, air is escaping up here. So I have to kind of mold it, kind of pull it around. Okay. Second check is you cover the inhaling. And if you breathe in, it should do that. That seal has to be against your face, against your skin. If you have a beard, I've warned some people before, having a lot of facial hair will not create an airtight seal anymore. That hair obviously will give space for the vapors to come pass through. So if you're going to work with knives constantly or metal materials, you need to shave, just let that aspect go and have a clean face so that you can wear your mask properly and keep it airtight. Okay, so that's the check you're supposed to do when you start. Now that's the reason why, getting back to sometimes I use these temporary ones, is because you're supposed to wash your mask every time you finish using it. You don't have to constantly perhaps maybe remove the filter, because that does tend to wear these joints, especially if it's cheaper. You have to wipe down the mask, clean the inside, you're trying to keep it clean. Generally speaking, you don't want to obviously touch these straps too much if you have oils on your fingers, because then it starts to corrode the plastic and rubber like that. And that's just going to be a challenge as you go through the day. You want to take a break, you have to wash your hands, and the next thing is this is always constantly filtering. Air is always constantly traveling around. So you're supposed to, when you're done, wipe them down, clean them up with soap. If you want to do a serious one, you can remove the filters, wash them all down. Obviously you can't wash the filters. And then you are supposed to store it in some area where there's not any chemicals. Like for example, you can put it in the back of the bag, Ziplocs, inside those little tiny clear Rubbermaid containers, anything that's just going to try to preserve these filters. For example, you can't leave this in your workshop around all the smell and odors and these chemicals that are already in the air. That's a bad choice. So you're basically wasting the filter and you're kind of contaminating the inside of your mask again with those same chemicals. Okay, these odors, these chemicals, they can go through any membrane, your sinuses, how to say, your eyes, and your ears. If you are familiar with like lab work, in those fields, they put earplugs just in case. Now, I don't do that. Now the concern here is where I see some people who, where they grind or they work in an enclosed space. You don't do that. Like, okay, having something like a metal dust collector. Now, I've seen where underneath the grinding area, people will put like a tray that'll catch it. Some people put their bucket. In general, it collects the dust. It's a sort of vacuum. They'll use a shop vac, okay? And you'll hear people who have issues with that. It'll catch fire because there's obviously a fan in there in your shop vac, and it's made of aluminum. And when aluminum hits hot metal or other sparks that are not aluminum, I forget how it works, but it causes a spark. You can basically have a fire. Some of those have paper filters also. So you're supposed to have a metal dust collector. But even then now, I have a metal dust collector. I like this right here, the Jet brand. Now this is one of my favorite, most important pieces of machinery that I purchased. It's great because it definitely does, you can feel it. It's not very powerful. I think it was roughly around 400 cubic inches or something like that per second. It's not a tremendous amount. It doesn't like pull everything down with it. The thing is here, even though it's here, I can still smell the vapors. They still rise somewhat. And so in an enclosed space, though you may be grinding and the dust is falling down, being caught by this, or falling down to the floor. And so obviously some safe methods would be perhaps wear some eye goggles that prevent any fumes going past your eyes, the layer of your eyes, and also then having earplugs. That's uncomfortable because when you're grinding, you're trying to see a fine detail. Sometimes that sucks. So you have the options of buying these. For example, what you see here, it's magnetic, and it's basically a swivel base. These are available through Grainger. I have no idea what they're called, but they lock into place. Once it's tightened, you can see it holds. And so you can use this as a method to prevent metal shavings from flying into your eyes or flying in your clothing, which will also help prevent, for safety it's basically a shield, but also it'll help with perhaps dust flying on your clothing. But that's only one aspect. For ventilation, what I use actually is then up here, I know it's ghetto, it's a paracord. I have Velcro and little metal ties to hold it, but it still shifts around and it doesn't aim just perfectly, so I use a cord. But the point is, that's blowing air directly down. And so I can forego, for me personally, I don't want to wear the earplugs or the goggles. So I wear my respirator, I have this to pull the air down, and then that one blowing air down, which is at the same actual cubic inches, is actually a what's it called? One of those those blowers that dry the carpet. It's by I forget which brand it is, but basically if you buy like just a high power blower, and I attached one of these cooling things to it and I just duct taped it and ran it across the ceiling. It's somewhere that fan comes from another part of the, I guess you would say, my work area far away, and it blows cleaner down on the grinding area, which helps those fumes go away. I do have a good amount of airflow going down, so for me, for example, I wasn't wearing the respirator. I don't smell at least the fumes when I'm standing directly underneath this fan. But I do see, like for example, some people working in enclosed spaces, or they have like a plastic, almost like a shower curtain going around their little work spot. And I know they don't want the metal dust going everywhere. I mean, I understand that completely, but I think when it comes to your health, you want as much ventilation. Open the doors, open whatever you can, have fresh air constantly going around, and then buy the proper respirator, do all those checks, And just think about that specifically. Once I came up with this ventilation system and I bought that very high quality metal dust collector, that changed everything, and that just was a great moment for me. Again, thank you for customer support. You can see metal dust in there. It's definitely important.